The enigmatic would-be maiden, burned and bodiless, leads us across the lands between, and inevitably to the mountaintops of the giants, where the flame of ruin awaits to light the Erd Tree ablaze. Melina remains at the forefront of mystery, but who is this kindling maiden, or who does she pretend to be?
I have long observed the lands between. This world is in dire need of repair, and death indiscriminate.
Hey there, I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and I hope you're doing well. Initially, I wanted to make a video with a single theory on Melina's identity, but after a lot of brain racking and hair pulling, I simply couldn't narrow it down to one. I don't believe there is enough of any evidence at the moment to point into a singular direction. And there are several directions that all begin to make a lot of sense in their own ways. So in this video, we'll be going over the different directions Melina's identity can take us. Let's start with some of the things that we do know about Melina. She was born at the foot of the Erd Tree, though now she comes to us under the guise of a maiden burned and bodiless. Her purpose was given to her by her mother inside of the Erd Tree, and that purpose is to be used as kindling for the flame of ruin to set the Erd Tree on fire. The more popular and seemingly most obvious theory is that Melina is in some way a daughter of Queen Marika, via her mother being within the Erd Tree giving her purpose. There is an interesting piece of dialogue from Melina, however, that could suggest that Marika isn't her mother in the traditional sense of the word.
Your seamster, Bok. I see him crying from time to time. I think he misses his mother. He wants someone to tell him he's beautiful. Does being born of a mother mean one behaves in such a manner?
This is certainly an interesting revelation, as it implies that Melina wasn't even born at all. What if she was created? Or what if she is Marika? So we know that Marika and Radagon are one and the same, though we don't know how the exact specifics of that work. But we do know that they shared a singular body, at least in the end, as we can watch Marika transition to Radagon. What if Melina is someone or something similar, except in a way that Marika breaks them off from herself? Marika knew for a while that she would betray the Golden Order. Melina, whose purpose is to burn the Erd Tree, could very much be the means to that. It would also explain some of the curiosities of Melina. Consider how the Black Knife assassins were all Numen women that had close ties to Queen Marika. It's obviously not a stretch to think, in regards to their fighting style, that Marika's would be similar. What's interesting is that Melina's dagger, the Blade of Calling, has the exact same weapon art as the Black Knife assassins' Black Knives, with the exception of the Black Knives being imbued with destined death, of course. And if we choose to summon Melina for the Omen King fight, we'll see that she has an exact same fighting style to the Black Knife assassins found within the game. We also find the Blade of Calling in a room clearly meant to keep someone locked away in. Outside of this room sits a dead guard from whom we receive the official's attire, which speaks of the grim tasks they dutifully carried out. Gruesome rituals, executions, surveillance, to name a few, which seems to be in line for sitting guard outside this room, making sure to keep Melina in. She was, after all, the kindling maiden, and an integral part of defying the Golden Order, regardless of whether she herself was a piece of Marika or not. So keeping your kindling for burning the Erd Tree under guard was probably imperative. Now, these things could make a compelling case for Melina being a part of Marika, but there is another piece that is left unaccounted for and doesn't quite fit into the previous theory, which I found to be a theme every time I thought I was figuring her out. The enigma here is found in the cutscene for the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending, in which Melina's previously shut eye is opened wide in a shining purple color for all to see. Or perhaps the color is more that akin to Gloam, as some would say that this suggests Melina is the Gloam-Eyed Queen, the once leader of the Godskin Apostles, as well as an Empyrean. But I don't think Melina quite fits that bill. However, I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that she could be the daughter of the Gloam-Eyed Queen. And the identity of the Gloam-Eyed Queen herself isn't super important when talking about Melina, But her possibly being Melina's mother, who's supposedly within the Erd Tree, doesn't mean that the Gloam-Eyed Queen has to be Marika in that regard. We learn through our travels in the Lands Between that when someone dies, their soul is called back to the Erd Tree. So if that's the case, the spirit of anyone who's dead could still be within the Erd Tree, as I'm not exactly sure of how their cycle of death and life works. And that could be Melina's mother. The Godskins once served Destined Death, but after their defeat at the hands of Malekith, their power was sealed away. So calling them enemies of the Greater Will and its Golden Order would probably be accurate. Which of course falls back on the idea that Melina's very purpose given to her by her mother is a major step in toppling the Golden Order. If Melina is the daughter of the Gloam-Eyed Queen, then she is intrinsically linked with death. And when we see her with her eye opened and the mark upon it faded, that is the only time we see her after Destined Death has been released back into the world. Otherwise, she would have already sacrificed herself so that you had the opportunity to do so. So, unbinding death seemingly unbinds her eye. So it's certainly curious in regards to this theory that the beast eye given to us by Malekith to track the death route is a murkier color of Melina's opened eye. And the scratch marks on the beast's eye could possibly line up with the marking upon Melina's eye. So being related to the Gloam-Eyed Queen and linked to death in such a way begins to make sense, especially considering that burning the Erd Tree grants us access to Farum Azula, where we can release death back into the world again, just as the Gloam-Eyed Queen would want, and could also explain why we find her Godskin duo there to begin with. But that doesn't quite explain why she's held captive in a room in the Leyendell capital, or why she's burned and bodiless, which is again the trend I ran into again and again when trying to make sense of this enigmatic maiden. Melina's being burned and bodiless could allude to an attempt to burn the Erd Tree once before, to champion another lord to the Elden throne that ultimately failed. Perhaps Melina was first maiden to another Tarnished, and perhaps this Tarnished was Bernal, who before becoming a recusant, slaughtering his own, was a champion worthy of becoming a lord, until of course his maiden threw herself into the fire. What caused Bernal to change his mind isn't super relevant, but it's perhaps the reason Melina could be burned and bodiless, still in search of a Tarnished who will actually take the mantle of Elden Lord. This still doesn't account for everything about Melina, though. What about the seal or mark upon her eye? It looks like it could be considered many different things. I personally believe that it looks a lot like a bird's talon. If the purple eye links Melina to the Gloam-Eyed Queen and thus to death, perhaps this mark is something to do with the twin bird, who is said to be an envoy of an outer god and the mother of the Deathbirds. So perhaps she's linked to death in that matter. And even before the time of the Erd Tree, death was burned in ghost flame, and the Deathbirds were the keepers of that fire. Could that explain her proclivity to use the Flame of Ruin to burn the Erd Tree? Or why she has the knowledge of the Flame of Frenzy and her insisting you leave it well enough alone, lest she hunt you down and kill you. Which is totally a Black Knife Assassin thing to say. Could a relation to this twin bird's outer god help solidify her as a daughter of Marika and sister to Melina and Mikola, who have each lived their existence dictated by a different outer god as well? I believe it was Vadi who theorized that perhaps each of the butterflies we find in the game correlates to one of the siblings. The Aeonian butterfly for Melina, the nascent butterfly for Mikola, and the smoldering butterfly for Melina, the kindling maiden. That would pair very nicely with the idea that Melina is also afflicted with something or other from another outer god. The thing is that for as much as something makes sense about Melina, there are other factors about her that work for some theories and not for others, and vice versa. I really wanted to make a video with my surefire theory about who Melina is, and maybe one day I'll feel I have uncovered it, but I simply couldn't do it this time around. And with how many different things that could make sense, I really just wanted to get a dialogue going about her, because I want to keep talking about her so badly. So tell me what you think, and let's try to crack this egg together. And thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and follow me on Twitter for reasons. Check out my brand new merch shop for some cool apparel, including this amazing Melina and Mikola merch done by Gen Designs. Join the community Discord and come chat lore with us.